What's going on, guys? Zane here with Everything Vive. Want to welcome you back for another episode. I'm joined by Ronnie and Damon. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. How about you, Damon?
I probably should address you one by one, but sorry. Ronnie, how you doing? And then Damon, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Yeah, I didn't want to speak too soon because it's kind of hard to know when when each of us is going to chime in.
Is it my turn?
Yeah, go ahead. Go for it, Damon. All you.
I'm doing very well. As you can probably hear, I've got a little bit of an upgrade, so you can hear all the nasal tones and all their glory and all their detail. But yeah, I'm doing very well.
It sounds fantastic. This is exactly what the listeners were looking for. Well, we have a lot of news to go through, and just to preface this episode is really just a quick reaction from us. There's a lot of news coming out of CES, and Damon, Ronnie, and myself have all been texting back and forth with all the news, our thoughts, and we just figured it'd be good to jump on and get a quick recording of where we think this is all going, the good stuff, the bad stuff, what was expected or hit the expectations of this announcement, and what we felt kind of maybe missed the mark, or left us wanting more. But like I said before, we are working on new episodes. We're trying to figure out the best format for episodes. I know Damon has been coordinating some interviews, so there is more content coming, but just with all the craziness of, honestly, the past 2 days with CES, we just figured a phone call or a chat and basically an episode would be necessary. So how are you guys feeling?
Yeah, pretty good. One thing I just want to chime in and mention is that, we kind of knew that some of these things were going to be talked about at CES, but man, after everything that's been announced, I'm kind of wishing, like, I had thought about trying to go to CES, and we've been obviously looking into going to some of the other shows coming up, like GDC, but man, CES, like, so much going on here. It's really, if you're into VR, you should definitely be checking the news because there's just so much being shown this week.
No, I totally agree. Well, let's just jump in. So I think the big thing that has dominated our internal conversation, I think just the broader conversation when it comes to VR and the Vive specifically, is the Vive Pro. So I'm just gonna throw out some quick specs that people are getting really excited about, and that was the new resolution, which I believe is going to be 2880 by 1600. There's going to be an integrated audio with much richer sound. There'll be 2 front-facing cameras, dual microphones, improved optics, and the ability to pair multiple base stations. And this is all going to be available Q1 is what they're saying for the HMD upgrade. And then, full package with new controllers and a Vive wireless adapter announced. I believe the partnership is through Intel, coming later this year. I believe available in the summer of 2018. So yeah. I know I just dropped a lot in there, but what sticks out to you guys? What is something... I mean, there's a lot to unpack here, so I'll let you guys decide on where we go from there.
Well, I mean, the only thing I was going to clarify, and I'm not 100% sure, the optics part. Like, I'm wondering. I had read that at least like the Fresnel lenses or whatever the lenses are in the normal Vive are still utilized here, which is something I was a little bit disappointed on, just because, like, for me at least, I know that sometimes the rings on the lenses, create some artifacts that I'm sensitive to. So I was hoping that they were going to go away from those, but sounds like they're still there. But that's from what I've heard, they're not as they don't create as noticeable artifacts on the newer screens. But yeah, I mean, just what I'm most excited about, I think, besides the resolution bump, which everybody's super excited about, obviously, are kind of the smaller changes. I know that the form factor in general has been changed to where I think the weight's more it's a lighter headset overall, and then on top of being lighter, the weight is more evenly distributed, from what it sounds like, and the band is kind of more substantial in that it takes off a lot of the weight from the front of your face and distributes it around the back better than the current Vive does. And so those are things that I'm just excited about trying, because I mean, really, for people that play a lot of VR, it's all those little things, I think, that ultimately, along with, getting rid of the wires, are going to really amount to kind of big, lifestyle changes. I don't know. What were there any things that you, Damon, or Zane, like kind of, latched onto when you were reading it?
Well, my big thing was I latched on to the purpose when Daniel O'Brien was saying, why did we create this? Why did we do this? Because before they talked about when there's something not meaningful to say, but meaningful to do as far as a Vive 2, then we'll do it. And he was very clear when he said, there's these enterprise level customers, and he used car designers as the example, and said, they're asking for higher resolution. They're asking for something that is more comfortable. Developers asking for something that's more comfortable, that they can spend hours and hours of in VR. So I really latched onto that. Said, okay, so this is definitely something, because I'm thinking what everybody else is thinking. Great, you're designing something for businesses. You're designing something for professional developers and professional customers. That usually has a pretty big price tag with it. So that was the first thing I latched onto. And the immediate second thing was when they say this is for, prosumers, this is for businesses, this is for professional developers. Well, guess what? You guys made us all connoisseurs of premium VR the second you introduced the Vive. So pretty much 90% of everybody in VR that's been in with it for 2 years, we want the best. So when you say this is now the best, guess what? We want it, and we want it at a. It doesn't have to be rock bottom Oculus price, but that's the first thing and the second thing that popped into my head.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that too, because like along those same lines, and I know we'll be talking like kind of back and forth on various stuff about the Pro. But, along the same lines as the headset itself, these new base stations that Valve is working on and releasing, they're able to track, I think, 4 trackers rather than 2. And then they're also able to, you're also able to add additional trackers to track up to 10 meters by 10 meters of space. Yeah. And me reading that, apparently, especially the 10 by 10 meter stuff came more from requests from commercial partners than anything else. And so, I
mean, if you have enough room for 10 by 10 meters in your house to do VR, that's pretty impressive.
You're rich. You're doing very well.
But like that, putting all that stuff together, like it does make you wonder how much of this stuff. I mean, I'm sure a lot of it is marketed for. Like they're hoping, everybody with Vives upgrade too, but it's interesting to think about what other applications VR has and how much of an impact those types of those types of use case scenarios are going into what's being requested here. Because like you were saying, it's a lot of those smaller things that kind of add up to being able to being a device that people can use time in, day in and day out every day. And if you're using those, especially in a business, those are some of the things that you're probably worried about. So.
Well, and the first question that any good marketing person asks is, who's my target market? Who am I actually going to sell this product to? So when you go to the executives and the board and everybody else, and you say, all right, we want to do a new version of this, a refresh of 1.5, and it's going to cost X to build it, and it's going to cost this much to research, and it's going to take a year and a half. They're going to say, oh, okay, well, when you get done with it, who's going to buy it? Oh, well, we've already got companies asking for it. We've got this. We've got the medical field asking for it. So if they've already got somebody in the pipeline, okay, great. But
and I don't know if people have really been talking about what types of like AR functionality they're going to be looking for with those new cameras. But that was another thing, is that the dual front cameras now supposedly are going to allow for more
very
AR functionality, and some of that, a lot of that probably is more commercial in nature, because right now there isn't a whole lot of applications in VR other than you think of like marketing and sales and potentially people trying to use some of this stuff in like factories and whatnot. like all these high level conceptual ideas that we've seen people talk about VR being used in. You know, I could see those cameras being useful in those settings more so than someone's living room. But who knows?
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's just really interesting to note how much of this is being driven by the commercial end or the more enterprise end, but at the same time that's where the money's at, right? Like that's where
absolutely.
That's where a lot of these high price clients, people who can demand these changes, or have the clout and the volume of business to demand these changes are going to be. And I don't know. I mean, this kind of just popped into my head, but it makes me feel as though the Vive is like, and this is probably not the best comparison or metaphor, but it's like the professional version, right? It's where it's the headset that companies are going to use because it's the top of the line. It works well and all that stuff. Whereas maybe the Oculus is shifting to be like that social VR since it's so integrated with Facebook. Again, like I apologize because this metaphor actually seems awful the more I think about it, but it's almost like Microsoft versus Apple, right? Like Microsoft is what's used in every corporate environment, whereas Apple for a while was like the fun computer, and they were making a fantastic product, which people started then using in offices as well in certain places in certain industries. But do you kind of get where I'm going with this, or like that?
Yeah, I do.
The parallel that I'm drawing, and does that make sense?
One is style, one is cool, one is the aesthetics, one is the experience, and you want people to know I've got an Apple product, I've got an Oculus Rift, I'm cool. And then the other one's more industrial, more we're getting work done here, where it's less aesthetics, more precision, more I totally get what you're saying.
I feel like you see that a lot in the marketing as well. I mean, and our complaint has always been about the Vive's marketing strategy and or lack of one, just because all I see are like banner ads online. But I feel like I've seen several like really cool looking and well done videos for Oculus, really highlighting what the experience is like for somebody who's just walking around and seeing a random television in a store and like the T-Mobile store or something. You know what I mean? Like there's a very different like approach that both are taking. And now I feel like this further not cements, but this further kind of proves what I'm saying in terms of like there being that divide between like one going enterprise heavy and the other going social heavy.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that too, just in terms of, I feel like, HTC is always, with their VR stuff, they're trying to be, the leader of the pack when it comes to innovation and really push forward with, to some extent you see some of these other headsets coming out like the Samsung Odyssey, that's going to be coming out with similar displays. And I see HTC in some sense, at least having to match what they're offering and then adding to that, trying to make always be the best option out there for anyone that's looking for the highest end, VR capabilities that are available.
Well, on the same thing, you got to remember too, OLED screens that are of this size that are drop-in replacements for the existing screen. There's not a ton of them. It's not like you can go to a shop and say, okay, I want 4K, I want 8K, and that's what I see a lot on. I see a lot on Reddit. People are like, oh man, I wish it was going to be 4K per eye and all that kind of stuff. There's not a lot of options, and plus two, there was some Samsung screens that were 4K, 120K hertz. But the problem with those is we don't know the cost of those. Those just came out like last summer. And
even beyond the cost. Yeah, even beyond the cost though. Like, and I don't know much about these new Samsung, these 3K or whatever the panels are that they're implementing in the Vive Pro. I know they're Samsung OLEDs. It sounds like they're the same OLEDs that are going to be in the Odyssey. And I remember when HTC was working on, what panels were going to be in the original Vive. I mean, part of the big differences between the final shipping Vive and all the earlier prototypes and all the earlier prototypes of, the Oculus Rifts, or that all those panels, like besides just the resolutions and what type of panels they were, they had specific technologies for, you know, how quickly they were able, like the response rates of the panels, like far more advanced than what even like a normal like fast gaming response monitor panel would have. It's because, you know, everything from like motion blur to all those things are so magnified in these headsets that really they were using like very, you know, specialized panels that work best with VR headsets.
And that's these. That's
yeah,
these.
And so that's
these new ones are Samsung design. They didn't have a phone in mind when they designed these. They had the Odyssey. So it's a VR designed panel.
So that's what. So really, I mean, I think beyond cost, beyond everything. I mean, yeah, probably going forward, if you want to use the best panel available for VR, I mean, you can go the Pimax route and just stick whatever, you know, high resolution screen you're able to find in there and claim that you have these high resolution numbers. But I don't think the HTCs and Oculuses and even Samsungs of the world, I don't think they're only concerned with just the resolution. They're concerned with all these other things. And so it sounds like this was the right time to introduce a new product out there with a slightly higher resolution. And I mean, just like what Zane was getting into, just like how the differences in marketing, like it seems like if you're an Oculus, you know, you're more concerned with getting the name out there and getting people that haven't experienced high-end VR interested in your branding and your marketing, and whether you're selling them a Gear VR, or you're selling them, you know, a Rift, or you're getting them into these new standalone, versions that are going to be coming out. You know, it doesn't really matter. Whereas, you know, to some extent, HTC, it's kind of like, well, if you know VR, then you know the Vive is the most capable. We don't really have to market too much to you. You're going to, you know, as long as we're releasing the best, then people that are in the know are going to want to buy our products, potentially. I mean, you see
Vive pay a premium price for them because it's 50% more than the Oculus.
Because it's interesting that we're mentioning all this stuff about, you know, it's interesting that they named it the Pro rather than the Vive 2, first of all, because that tells you right there that, I mean, they could have named it something like the Vive 2, but they didn't. And so to some extent, I mean, I'm sure they would love everyone with a Vive to upgrade. That's not necessarily what they're saying in the naming. They're kind of, you know, it's kind of almost like a middle step or a side step in terms of getting people on board. And so that's one. And then the other thing is just that that's what I was sorry, mind blank there for a second. I've seen a lot of people that have been using VR in the medical space. I've seen some, you know, other examples of like arcades now that have utilized VR. And almost every time when I hear about what the utilization is, they just mention, oh yeah, we're using VR to do this, or we're using it to do that. And almost every time I find out that they're using Vives. And it's usually just like, oh, well, is that, you know, specialized hardware? Are you guys using HTC or Oculus? And almost every time I've seen people, you know, have said, oh yeah, it's the HTC Vive.
But it's like they kind of fell in they kind of fell into that. They put together the package. They said it's very precise. We're going to put it out there and kind of whatever sticks. And as a business, you got to follow the money. I mean, that's something Mark Cuban always says. You follow the money. And if the money's coming in from businesses, from pro level developers and from these professional level, that's your stream of revenue. That's who's willing to pay $1,200 for a Vive with a special warranty and a phone number you can call 24/7. Then that's where the business is going to point, because they don't have billions of dollars to just kind of flush down the toilet on whatever. They're both great systems, and one is just kind of finding its niche with professional level, and one is finding its niche with kind of a more, like I said, social level, trying to become the mass adoption make it up on the back end, and that's it's all great for VR because we're getting more and more headsets. We're 2 years in, we have just almost a plethora of more headsets coming out, and competition between the two to kind of outdo each other for specs and for. I'm most happy that all the things that we were kind of really talking about, and everybody in the VR community was talking about. The mic sound on the Vive is not that great. The resolution should be improved. The comfort, the sound, having sound included. Like I don't have to buy something else with a deluxe audio strap. All these things that we've been saying, wireless, like the top list of our things. They took into account and they looked at them on the list. They said, what can we do? We can make it a little bit higher resolution with these panels that are the right affordability. We did the deluxe audio strap. It was a huge hit. Let's build that in. Let's take it up a notch farther. They've really listened. I feel they've listened to their end users and the regular consumers like us, and they've listened to the professional users, and they said, okay, how can we make something that everybody's going to like on this higher end that jumped in early on the Vive because they're not as price sensitive, and I think they delivered it. Now,
and really still the Vive is still competitive. It's still best of the best when it comes to providing a great gameplay experiences for what most people are looking for. Like you said, like the Pro version is just answering a lot of those requests that they've received from current users, from pro level, enterprise users, from all these people, and just delivering the best possible. If you can't pay the price, I guess you stick with the normal Vive. If you can afford and justify paying the premium for those extra features, then go ahead with the Pro. Because the more you talk about it, a lot of those things that they're adding, the more I think about it, none of those are cheap things. Like we're talking, they have multiple cameras now instead of a single camera. I'm sure the cameras, I don't know if I'm sure the cameras are higher quality than the original Vives. I'm not sure, how expensive they are, but I know that the new headset, the new headphones aren't just headphones like those included with the premium head strap for the original Vive. They literally have amplifiers built into them. I don't know how expensive those are going to be, but I mean, so it's not just the headphones, it's also amplified sound. There's more electronics in there to make the sound better. Blue
paint.
Trying to think what else. Yeah, exactly. The blue paint. I'm sure that's
what it calls a premium. That's right there.
Yeah, but the more I think about it, and then with those, and then now using OLED displays at a higher resolution, I mean, you add up all that extra hardware. We're not just talking about an upgrade to the original headset. We're talking an upgrade to everything that was included in the original headset, plus added features. So I know they haven't announced a price yet, and hopefully we'll get more pricing information sooner rather than later. But it's starting to make me think that it's not going to be necessarily cheap. But
I don't think it's going to be cheap.
No, but again, they're not really. It's one of those things. It's if you really want those things, then you justify the price. If the price is too high and those things aren't really your cup of tea, then maybe it's best to wait and and see. Because I mean, they're making it very clear that they're going to be selling both, concurrently for this coming year. So that's one thing at the very least. And then two is a lot of the wireless solutions that I'm sure we'll be getting into, here in just a moment. The wireless solutions all work for both the original Vive and the Vive Pro. So again, they're not trying to phase out the Vive right now or anything like that.
Far from it, yeah.
By adding in the Pro. And again, they didn't go with Vive 2. They went with Vive Pro.
It just seems to be like another tier is really what it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean, I agree with you, Ronnie. And since you mentioned it, I do want to kind of move into the wireless solutions because the TPCast Plus was mentioned, and the Vive or HTC is working on its own internal solutions. They partnered with Intel for like a wireless solution with that. How does this play out? I mean, in your guys' opinion?
Well, I looked online and I saw a review of somebody that had got to try out, and I forgive me, I don't have the exact link or who it was, but someone in the media industry got to try out the TPCast Plus at CES.
Mm-hmm. I think I read that.
Yeah, his impressions were good, but he did mention more than once that the weight of having because basically this is the TPCast with a battery that attaches, it's like a built-in attachment and a special mount that's on top of your head that holds the receiver unit and the sending unit and the battery on your head and kind of offsets the weight on a deluxe audio strap.
I read the same thing. They said that the performance was flawless, but since because the older version of the TPCast, it had the wire running down your back and you put the battery in your pocket or something. But I do remember hearing people complain about that.
Yeah, and the official wireless adapter that HTC is going to be putting out with Intel, it's similar. Yeah, so that I read the same thing, that the main difference between the TPCast Plus versus these other solutions, including the original TPCast, was where they were mounting the battery. And I'm sure you're getting there, Damon, but it sounded like they were almost recommending going with the original TPCast rather than the Plus.
Yeah, they were, because he said there was that inertia when I moved my head and I could just feel it there. And no matter what I did, the weight was nice, but when I would move from side to side or turn around my head quickly, I could feel on the back of my head this big weight back there. And I think that combined with, I don't feel super comfortable about putting a giant, and it's a giant, that Anker battery supply is massive. Putting that giant lithium ion battery on the back of my head, I don't know. And now price is everything. If they come down and they say it's $149 for the whole kit or $199 for the whole kit, and it comes with two batteries and it's hot swappable, that's the other thing about the TPCast. If you pull that battery out, you're disconnected, and you could have a couple of minutes where you got to resync everything. You put the new battery in if you have two. The new one has some kind of thing where it has like an onboard thing. It'll have a little bit enough power for you to pull old battery out, put a new one in, hot swap. So that's great, but hopefully there's an option. And if we can get better communication with TPCast, to ask them, hey, is there an option where I don't have to have the battery in my head and I can have it on like a belt clip or something? Do I have to have it back there in my head? Those kinds of questions, because I can definitely see that.
Now, have they released any pricing information for the TPCast Plus? I don't remember seeing anything.
I don't think so.
No, their Generation 1 is $300, and they really haven't. Only the Microsoft sale at Christmas have I ever seen it bump below that. I think they're waiting, like everybody else, to see what the Intel HTC version is going to come out at. They've definitely got they've got a mark to hit. They'll probably, if there's, advantageous, maybe come in at a $199 or a $249 and then go on sale every once in a while for $199. But it's a lot they definitely are setting themselves up to sell a pro package with Wi-Fi at the $1,200 to $1,500 mark, which is exactly what their set was.
For HTC, you're saying. Yeah.
The HTC Vive Pro wireless, with everything and the warranty and everything else for $1,200 to $1,500.
New base stations.
New 2.0 base stations. Basically the whole kit this summer or early summer at around that cost, which, everything's up in the air. We don't know. It's all good questions to ask HTC.
Damon, when we were texting earlier, I think I saw you mention something about a trade-in program. I couldn't find anything on that, but figured I'd ask here.
There is a video, and it's Dan O'Brien, our buddy Dan O'Brien, and he's talking to a media rep at CES, and they ask him very point clear, what about people that already own the Vive? Is there going to be some kind of way for them to upgrade or trade in? And he took a second, and he said, we're working on something. It's definitely something we're thinking about. So he didn't commit, but then didn't say, "No, that's preposterous and we'll never do that." He definitely took a second and said, it's something we're thinking about, which I think would be amazing. I think it's a great way to show, because the value of these headsets, once the Pro is out, once the Pimax is out, once people are upgrading and trying to go somewhere else, what do you do with the old headset? Unless there's some way to play two-player games or view, spectate using the same computer, or how many people have VR capable two computers in their house? It's very few. So what are you going to do with your old headset other than look at it every once in a while? So But the question then goes to HTC. Okay, if you did do a trade-in program and you gave $100 or $200 or $150 for people to trade in their working condition, good condition Vives, I think, and I said it on Reddit, that opens up the opportunity to have factory refurbished Vives with stations and controllers, and hopefully fix the controller and make it not have so many problems. But offer that to people at an extremely low competitive cost, limited warranty, no games, just a Viveport trial for maybe a month or two, and really take it to all the other mixed reality headsets. I mean, bring it in really low. Because
they'd be everywhere. Assuming that the trade-in makes sense and you get a decent amount for it, and the Pro headset isn't ridiculous, I could see a lot of people wanting to take advantage of something like that. And then
everybody's on the fence and says, the headset only for the Pro. If it's $400, I'm all right. If it's $300, it's an instant buy. If it's $500, no thanks. Well, if it's $400 or $450, and they're going to give me $150 for my headset or $100 for my headset, and now I'm looking at $300, $350, and I'm 40 years old. $300 to me is it's within my discretional income for a while, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. If I was 19 in college and I didn't have the money and $200 was rent money, okay, that's not that extra $200 or $300 or $400, it's not really feasible. But that's starting to go straight up against the Rift when you talk about refurbished units and getting a Vive in it, a complete working Vive under warranty, refurbished for $199, $249, even $300, room scale out of the box, and I've got premium VR. Yeah, that starts looking very nice.
I would even make the argument that with people who are educated about VR, or at least up to date on where the VR scene is at. I mean, even if you price it competitively at $400 to an Oculus, I mean, there are enough people who know the type of experience between both of them where I'd say a good chunk of people would choose a refurbished Vive over a brand new Oculus at that price point.
And you're not locked in. Right?
And you're not
locked into one store. You're not locked into one kind of hardware. If later the Pimax has some sale, or somebody says, hey, I got a Pimax, you want to buy it off me? I'm going to get another one. You can be like, okay, sure. Or the Vive Pro. By Christmas time, if Vive Pros are coming up for sale because people are like, I decided to get something else, you can buy something else and add to it. You can add the wireless to it. It's a very open thing. So it's a very inviting thing. And we all know once somebody starts playing VR on a regular basis, that's it. You're in.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of having it and playing it. So that's definitely, again, more.
That's
good
an
questions.
interesting idea. You should bring that up with them.
Well, and I know, listening to both of you guys talk about it too. Like if I'm HTC, I want people staying within my platform as much as possible, right? I mean, they've obviously made lots of, like big pushes with with Viveport and all these other, software reasons to stay within the ecosystem. But I mean, realistically, at the end of the day, if I'm a Vive owner and I don't buy a Pro, and I eventually then see a new headset like a Samsung or some other headset out there that has better features than my current Vive, that's a potential, scenario where I might jump ship and go with a different manufacturer, right? I think it's definitely within HTC's, interest to try to get as many people to want to move from a normal Vive to a Vive Pro as possible, just from that standpoint that even if you invest, $200-$300 to get the new headset, trade in your old Vive, for an additional $100, $150, whatever, by making that investment in HTC, you're again staying within the ecosystem. You're probably more likely to then buy the Vive 2, buy the Vive 2 Pro, buy future iterations of the Vive when it comes to it, rather than moving on to something completely different, several years past the initial Vive launch. So that
and you're gonna feel more not indebted, but you're gonna feel like they're thinking about me as a customer. They're thinking about that 2 years ago or a year ago, I took a risk. I I paid more of a premium. I'm in on the game. I want to be in VR. I like, I like what you're doing, HTC and the Vive. Not everything, it's not all roses. I mean, no VR camp and manufacturer has all the boxes checked. Everybody's got a little bit here, a little bit there. Some are open, some are closed. So it's all decisions you have to make. But when a company says, we're going to do something special here, we're going to do something to kind of appreciate the fact, and we want you in. Even though we're an open field, we want you, we want you to stay with us. So
I think anything
it could go a long way.
Yeah, anything that they could do to, in a sense, reward early adopters. I mean, these are the people who poured in way too much money for a product that wasn't quite. No, okay, maybe that's not fair to say, but I mean, early adopters end up paying more for first gen tech, right? Like, there's no denying that.
That's the territory.
So it just comes with the territory. Now, the thing is, these are the people who are going to be the most excited for a Vive Pro or a Vive 2 or whatever whatever new generations and iterations keep coming out. Like, you want them to still be at the forefront because they're the ones that are going to go around, have parties, invite people over, show it off, tell everyone about it. You want it to be as accessible for them without making them spend, $600 to $800 every 2 years. I don't know. That's just my opinion. So I'm curious to see what they offer. I'd be interested in doing it if it was reasonable, as I'm sure many, many other folks out there, many other Vive owners out there would be as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I'm still just interested in what TPCast's plans are post a lot of these headsets going wireless in the long term.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to get inside the headsets. They're trying to make open source, or not open source, but license their technology to be inside headsets from the start.
Well, and I don't even know, like, in addition to that, like, some of the stuff I was reading was kind of, I forget if it was the president or whoever it was from TPCast, basically, in response to that more or less exact question, what are you going to do about these, Intel and HTC and what they're doing in the wireless front? And his response was, we already knew, that they made that announcement about them working together, a year ago. This isn't new news to us. We're continuing on, we have, we're making iterations of our wireless tech that's going to work with not only HTC Vive, but the Oculus Rift, all these other headsets that are out there, Microsoft's headsets, Samsung. So, like, it's not. I'm sure you're right, Damon. In terms of, I'm sure they're talking with these other manufacturers to try to get their technology built into headsets from the get-go. But they're also viewing it from a platform agnostic point of view, where even if it's inevitable that they're going to have their own. There's going to be different solutions out there, but if they can be kind of a catch-all to all these different platforms. And that's because one of the things, I don't know how this goes with, the flow of our conversation now, but I mean, one of the things I immediately kind of thought of when, limitations of the TPCast, when the Vive Pro announcement was made, was the fact that TPCast is, I think, up to 2K resolution compatible. And so, from that standpoint, I wonder how well it'll work with the Vive Pro. Like, if it's just going to be, feeding a lower resolution signal to a headset, if it is compatible at all with the Vive Pro, or if
OpenTPcast just like hacks the whole thing and it works day one, or they're able to get their own version. So it's good questions. It's good things to ask TPCast. It's good things to ask HTC.
I agree.
For sure. Well, hopefully we'll be able to get some of those questions answered in the near future. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up, guys. I don't know if there's anything else that you thought was worth mentioning. We can go through that. I just have one thing, and that's a quick mention on the software side of things. They said that there's going to be 1,000 new experiences coming out. And I mean, we've seen a lot of these experiences, and I would say that a good majority of them aren't anything to write home about, but still it's nice to see that number, as just people out there developing for VR. And the almost like a tangential thing to that is the upgrade to Viveport VR, where you can.
Oh, we almost forgot.
Yeah, well, I mean, well, and I'm
We
curious.
should
to
have
get,
led with that.
We should. Well, no.
Damn it.
So I use Viveport and I'm enjoying it. And one of the things that I'm excited about is the ability to be able to try games in VR before buying them, or at least like a little demo.
Yeah, I saw. That's cool. That's
So
cool.
that I think is cool. Once there's more information, once we can actually try that out, I would love to. I think it'd be cool to give our thoughts on it. But I think that's a really cool option that something like Steam doesn't have. Like, yeah, you have a return policy with Steam where you can try a game out for 2 hours if you don't like it. But
is that like streaming it? Like you're going to stream like a couple minutes of it, or 30 seconds, or is that streaming the game?
I couldn't find any other details except that you'd be able to play like quick demos. And so that's from a software perspective, that's one thing that I'm actually really excited about, because I am a Viveport subscriber. I do believe the titles on there are getting better. At least they have a good amount, and it's just nice to be able to pay $7 and get, try out 5 games for the entire month. And if there's something I really like, I'll buy it. But for the most part, it's doing exactly what it intended, which is like the Netflix, not all you can eat, but 5 you can eat for the month type of deal.
Well, so we'll see.
Was there anything else you guys had?
Yeah. No, I think we pretty much covered it.
No.
Cool. Well, let's continue to monitor the news here. I think we just wanted to get ahead of what was going on at CES these first couple of days, and we'll be back with some more analysis, some more episodes, and hopefully some interviews as well. But until then, guys, take care, and we'll talk again very, very soon.